Hello and welcome to Tuesday Talks at Merryspring Nature Center for 2026. My name is John Fromer, the Program Director and your host. Today's Tuesday Talk is generously sponsored by Camden River House. Recordings are made possible by the Cascade Foundation. You can find today's talk and previous talks on our YouTube channel. Merryspring is open every day of the year from dawn to dusk free of charge. Find out more at merryspring.org. Today's program on the amazing saga of the Steller's sea eagle in Maine was presented by Nick Lund from Maine Audubon.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. Thank you. It's good to be back at Merryspring, even virtually. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my funnest, most exciting bird stories ever. This is one of the coolest, craziest things that's ever happened in the world of birding, and it happened right here in Maine. This is the amazing saga of the Steller's sea eagle. Let's get into it, but actually first, I have to start here. I am Nick. I work for Maine Audubon. We are also a membership-based organization. We would love to have you as members if you are so able. We are the oldest and largest wildlife conservation organization in the state of Maine. We have members all up and down the state. We have 7 chapters, including the Mid-Coast chapter, which I think operates around the Merryspring area, and wildlife sanctuaries around Maine. We do lots of great stuff. We have education programs like this and many others for kids and adults. We have biologists on staff who are working to understand populations of Maine wildlife. And we have advocates. I'm also in our advocacy department who bring what we've learned from our scientists to Augusta and to DC. So if you're not a member, we'd love to have you to join us to do great things to protect the environment in Maine and beyond. But today I'm talking about this bird. This bird is the Steller's sea eagle. It is one of the most impressive and coolest birds in the entire planet. It is an eagle. It is a Haliaeetus eagle, which means it is related to our bald eagles. But it is kind of, I hate to say this, kind of cooler in every way than a bald eagle. It's bigger than a bald eagle. So it's Steller sea eagles are between 11 and 20 pounds. A bald eagle is generally about 7 pounds, upwards of 15 pounds. So Steller sea eagles are about 5 pounds heavier, about 25% heavier than the heaviest of bald eagles. They have an 8-foot wingspan, which is at least a foot longer than our bald eagles. And if you've seen a bald eagle, you know that they're huge. They're impressive birds. So this is even more impressive. They do not live in Maine. Okay, so these sea eagles are not found in the United States. It's important to remember this. This is the range of the Steller sea eagles found on in Asia. So usually around the Sea of Okhotsk here. So if you can picture northern Japan there and the Korean peninsula, and then up into Russia around this large bay called the Sea of Okhotsk, and then down through Kamchatka Peninsula there. That is the summer and winter range. In the orange is the summer and the blue is the winter range of this magnificent bird. So they migrate generally. Some you can see in purple there stay in one place, but they migrate between the sort of Russian coast there on the northern Sea of Okhotsk and south into northern Japan and the Korean peninsula in the winter. Notice that none of this includes Maine, just for further reference. What's another cool thing about this bird? Their bill is gigundibus. They have a huge, honking, awesome bill. It looks like sort of a fake Muppet bill, but that is sort of easily distinguishing them from a bald eagle, this gigantic face that they use to rip open fish. So you can see this bird here. This looks to me like a frozen fish. I'm not sure it's wild caught or somebody threw that out, but it uses its beak to tear open big fish. It is a sea eagle. The identification is fairly straightforward. First of all, they're gigantic, and so that separates them from most all other birds, except there are a couple other eagles Related in the Haliaetus family, as I was saying, there's the bald eagle. There's also a bird called the white-tailed eagle, which is found across Asia, which looks a lot like our bald eagle, except it has a white tail instead of the white head. But the Steller sea eagle is relatively easy to ID. Big black body, white tail, huge honkin' orange bill, and importantly, these white on the forewing, so the white leading edge of the wing. No other bird has that. You can see when the bird folds up its wings right here, that it has like sort of a big white stripe along its side. There's really no other bird that you could confuse this with. This is a Steller sea eagle. Another cool thing about these birds is that they are very rare. They are the rarest eagle in the world. There are only about 4,000 Steller sea eagles in the entire world. And compare that to, in the lower 48 United States, more than 300,000 bald eagles. So this is extremely, extremely rare bird, the rarest of all the eagles. And this is a bird that, me and many others as a bird watcher knew about, but thought we would never see. Right? This is one of those birds you're like, man, I've seen that in, Planet Earth or something. That's an awesome looking bird, but when am I? I don't have travel plans to the Sea of Irkutsk anytime soon. So this is just a bird that I may never see. And that's the way we left it, and what we thought was going to happen. Until some crazy things started happening. Let me tell you about these crazy things. Our story begins in the 2020, the summer of 2020, the heady summer of 2020. We were all sitting inside wearing masks, not talking to each other, scared about the state of the world, when a report of a bird came from central Alaska. So here's a map of Russia and Alaska. You can see over here on the left, there's the Sea of Irkutsk, right? So this is the natural range of these Steller sea eagles right about here. Occasionally, there have been records of Steller sea eagles from the Alaskan coast or the Aleutian Islands. So it's not super unheard of for an individual to show up way down here and hang out. But this record was unusual because it was over here at this red dot in central Alaska. There had never been a sighting of a Steller sea eagle seen in central Alaska. And here was that checklist. So this is from eBird. eBird is the website that everybody uses to upload their sightings. This is on the McLaren River in Matanuska, Susquehanna, that's terrible, County, Alaska. Steller's sea eagle, milepost 43 of the Denali Highway. This guy looked over and saw a Steller sea eagle on a tree. Pretty crazy. Extremely far from water, right? So you know how big Alaska is. We are not near the ocean at all where these birds like to hang out. We are far inland. But this is still Alaska. And so everyone was like, wow, that's cool. That's a very unusual record. But it's Alaska. Weird stuff happens up there. Interesting. Josh, got some great photos of this bird. And I want to take a look at these photos here. Because one really important thing about Steller sea eagles is that they can be told apart from each other. Individuals can be told apart by the way that this white feathering bleeds into the black feathering on the wings. So if you get flight photos of an individual Steller sea eagle, you can sort of use them as fingerprints to see which individual you have. And so I want to take a couple notes here. One is this white feather right here, kind of a stray white feather. These two and these two sort of protruding white feathers here, okay? So let's just keep that in mind. So that was the summer of 2020, and that was it. There was this one sighting here in August, and it was not seen again. So people just sort of went around their merry way. Until a very unusual report came from, of all places, southern Texas. Okay, so where it's the next spring, it's March of 2021, and a gentleman is, I believe, kayaking or canoeing on the Colito Creek Park Reservoir near Victoria, Texas, and he snaps this picture. This is undoubtedly a Steller sea eagle, right? this is undoubtedly taken at the Colito Creek Park and Reservoir. So people went out after this photo was taken and found this exact snag, found this tree. This was a Steller seagull perched on a tree in Texas. But that was it. There was only one sighting, only one photo. There was no photo taken with the bird had spread its wings. And so people don't know what's going on here. But the likeliest explanation, honestly, is that this bird was first seen in Alaska and then spent the winter and early spring flying to Galdang, Texas. Okay, look at that. These are, nobody knows where it went. Nobody saw it in this interim period. Nobody, knows if it went this way or along the Pacific coast or went down to Mexico, or nobody knows. But we do know that there was Steller seagulls seen between this point and this point. It has never been determined whether the Texas bird was some escaped bird from somewhere incredibly randomly or not. So that was the story there for a little while. So that was in March of 2021. Flash forward a couple months later. It is June 2021, and guess what is seen? A Steller sea eagle shows up on the Restigouche River in New Brunswick, Canada. So here it is here. This is the Gaspé Peninsula here. These are some sites that between June and August 2021, a Steller sea eagle was seen. And guess what? When we looked at the photos of this bird, we saw it was the same bird. Okay, so here in the middle is the photo of the Alaskan bird. You can see here's that white feather. Here are the two pointy feathers here. Here is a different Steller sea eagle. This is a different one. And you can see it does not have those pointy feathers. It does not have a stray white feather. This is not the same bird. But this is the New Brunswick bird. And you can see pointy feather, stray white feather, pointy feather. This Alaska bird and the New Brunswick bird are the same bird. And let me tell you, at this point, a year after it was seen in Alaska, birders started going nuts. This is crazy because this is what probably happened, right? An individual Steller sea eagle, the largest and rarest eagle in the world, flew from Asia to Alaska, probably to Texas, and then probably, but definitely to New Brunswick, Canada, right? So we do not know whether it went here to here and this was some random bird or it went a big loop, but this is definitely crazy and this totally happened, okay? Pretty crazy. So the story continues. So it's in New Brunswick. This is not that far from Maine. Birders like me have done a lot crazier things than drive from Maine to New Brunswick to look at the rarest bird in the world. But guess what was closed in the summer of 2021? The border between the US and Canada. So all these American birders were biting their hands off because we couldn't go after this bird that was in Canada just north of us. So we were devastated. It kept bouncing around. Okay? This is a post from my friend Jake Walker, a good friend of mine, in the Falmouth, Nova Scotia boat launch. He saw the Steller seagull. So it had moved now from New Brunswick down to Nova Scotia right here. Okay. And one thing is happening. So way back when I showed you the range maps, you saw that this Steller seagulls migrate north to south. Right. So in the spring, they move north and they move up into the forest of that part of Russia. And in the winters, fall migration, they move south. They move a little bit south to get to open water around Japan or wherever. So this bird, when we look at this map, this was in August and then it moved south for the winter. And then it was seen way down here in the spring. It moved back north in the summer. And now in September, right, or in November, it was starting to move south again. Okay. So people were seeing it moving south and people were starting to get crazy. This is when I started getting involved. Okay. Again, I, like all other birders, was just sitting around watching this story and going, this is crazy. This is the rarest bird on the world. It's big and huge and cool, and it is very lost. I got to tell somebody about it. So I wrote on Twitter the day it was seen in Nova Scotia. I said, someone from a major outlet needs to write a story about the Steller sea eagle saga. Russia to Alaska to probably Texas to Quebec to Nova Scotia. Let's get rid of NFTs, that dumb thing we were talking about that time, and let's write a story. Guess what? The New York Times DM'd me and said, yes, let's do it. And the New York Times wrote a story in November about the Steller sea eagle. And that was cool. So that was the first hint of press for this bird, and it was a story, and people were primed for more action. That more action happened just a month later. And so let me set the stage for you. I don't want to go to the next slide yet, but let me set the stage for you. I am doing a Christmas bird count. I hope folks here do Christmas bird counts. It is the annual bird count. So around in middle or end of December, groups of people go out and try to find as many birds as they can within a certain area. It's a really fun time for birders. It's a big sort of event. I am in York County, Maine, doing the York County Christmas bird count. And it's December 12th, 2021. And this email comes across the Massachusetts Rare Bird Alert. It says, Brian got word that a Steller sea eagle was seen. This was a week early, so I was actually wrong here. This is December 19th. I'm sorry. Oops, don't look. December 19th, that the Steller sea eagle has been seen on the Taunton River in Massachusetts since December 12th. This is the first time that public word got out. There's a whole story behind this, but they sort of kept it a secret and didn't tell anybody. But the word got out on the 19th, and there's no border closed between Maine and New Hampshire and Massachusetts. So guess what? Let's go. I ditched my responsibilities of the Christmas bird count. I got my friends Doug and Finn together, and we bailed out and drove as fast as we could to Massachusetts to try to find this insane Steller sea eagle. Here I am. Look, it's winter. I got a collared shirt under my sweater. We got masks on. I'm driving over the speed limit. Okay, don't tell anybody now. I don't know what the statute of limitations are. You can't prove it, but let me tell you, I was driving as fast as my car could go to Massachusetts. Here is the Dighton River, or the Taunton River, Dighton Rock State Park right here. Here's Providence. So you see we're down south of Boston. We got there as frantically as we could. There was hundreds of cars already in front of us. And guess what? Boom, baby. I saw the Steller's sea eagle in Massachusetts. I never thought that I would be able to see this bird in person. It was hanging out with a whole bunch of other bald eagles, as is common with eagles in the wintertime. Here you can see the beautiful Steller sea eagle perched with two immature bald eagles here. So these are young bald eagles. They don't have a white head and tail. But just look, you can just tell how much bigger this Steller sea eagle is than these juvenile bald eagles. These are not much smaller than an adult bald eagle, but this bird is clearly bigger. This was the highlight of my birding life at this point. So we saw this bird on December 19th, along with hundreds of others. That night, it flew away and was not seen again in Massachusetts. It flew away. And we felt very lucky. Nobody knew where else the saga would take us. Here's where the saga took us. Flash forward a week. It is December 30th. I am doing what a lot of birders do on December 30th. I was just going around looking for any birds that I hadn't seen that year to try to flesh out my year list. I'm just sort of birding around. I remember it very clearly as being a gross day. There was maybe snow and rain around. It was that sort of dreary December cold. And I'm sitting in my car, in this parking lot, trying to find some dumb sparrow that I hadn't seen yet. And I'm just scrolling through my blog. So I had written a blog post about this Steller sea eagle, and I see this email come in that I had a comment on my blog. The comment said this. It said, Linda Tharp said, "It's in Five Islands, Maine today, December 30th. And I said, who the heck is Linda Tharp? What do you mean it? It? The bird? It? What are you talking about? And so I frantically scrolled through Instagram, found someone named Linda Tharp who looked like she lived in Maine, and DM'd her and said, "Are you Linda Tharp? Can you get a picture of this bird and send it to me?" And it worked. So she sent me a picture this picture, and I texted it to my friends, not telling them what it is. I said, well, what does this look like to you? Waiting on a better pick. And when I got this emoji face back from my friend Doug Hitchcock's, I said, it's on, baby. As a Maine birder, there is nothing more that I wanted to see than this beautiful bird in my home state of Maine. This was December 30th. It was about 4 o'clock. We drove immediately, red alert flashing as fast as we could to Five Islands, Maine, which is near Georgetown, Maine. I got the word out on the Maine listservs. I sent this picture. We sent all the information we could. We got up there, and by the time we could get there, it was dark. You know, it's late December, and so nobody saw nothing. Okay? So then flash forward to the next day, December 31st, and here we are. I'm not sure if the sound is going to work or not, but there are some swear words in this video because everyone is so amazed that we are seeing a Steller seagull in the state of Maine. What you're going to see here is at some point, this is my friend Doug filming, the Steller seagull is going to fly this way and land in one of these trees. He's going to walk and he's going to say, oh my gosh, and maybe some other choice words, because this is a moment that every Maine birder is waiting for. We traced this bird across the entire nation, and now here it was in our backyards. Here it is in the middle. Holy shit. There it is. Everyone is going, oh my God. People are blown away. Look at this bird in Maine. Unbelievable. These are photos Doug took that very morning. Here are some others landing on some trees. You can see, here we go, the two white feathers sticking out. You can't really see the stray white one because it's over here. The other cool thing about this morning is that this was the craziest scene of all time. Five Islands, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it is a summer tourist destination. There's a beautiful picturesque lobster house right here on the dock. December 30th is not high season for tourists. And so all these lobstermen in Five Islands were preparing to pull their traps in for the year. We're cleaning the boats, and they were sort of puttering around the harbor. It was a normal day for them. But all of a sudden, dawn rose on December 31st, and thousands of birders were sitting on the wharf with big cameras, and nobody knew what the heck was going on. There's one road, you can see it back here, that leads to this wharf. It snakes all the way back here. There were cars lined up along the entire road leading out of town, and hundreds of birders going around this wharf. It was miraculous. And the bird was sort of bombing around. It would be seen, and then it would maybe disappear behind an island and swim, then come back around. And so there'd be these waves of excitement as the bird showed itself, and birders would cheer and erupt and celebrate. It had the potential to be kind of a tense scene because we were certainly crowding out the lobstermen. We were trying to get the job done. We were, up in their neck of the woods all of a sudden, but it ended up being great. The lobstermen were delighted to have us here. Some of the lobstermen actually charged people like $20 to jump on their boat and then go out in the water and see the eagle from the water, which was actually one of the lobstermen got in trouble because he didn't have a captain's license to be able to take people out on the boat, but it was still very cool. This was one of the greatest birding days I've ever had because it was a huge collection of people. It was a beautiful day in a beautiful part of Maine. Beautiful, tons of people all celebrating joy and sort of miraculousness together, and we had a wonderful time. This bird was seen for a couple days in December. So this is December 30th and 31st. Most sightings were from here in Five Islands in Georgetown. There were some other people who saw the bird as it was flying around down here off Reed State Park. So it would sort of come and go for the next couple of days. One of the funny things for a lot of birders in Maine was that this flew right over our heads. Right? At some point, this bird, the most famous bird in America, and a gigundous crazy eagle, we don't know how it flew, but it may have flown from, over the city of Boston, over Portsmouth, over Portland, and then down to Five Islands. It could have flown right over the water. We don't know. But it is amazing that, this awesome bird flew unseen over one of the most densely populated parts of the world. Pretty cool. This is really when things for Maine Audubon kicked into high gear. The bird started hanging around in Georgetown, in that part of the area, and people really, really wanted to see it. Hundreds and hundreds of birders, not having to cross the border anymore, began coming from other states, began coming from everywhere they could to come to Maine to find the sea eagle. And Maine Audubon became a hub for information for this bird. This blog post that we kept updating every day with sightings became quickly the most read blog thing that we've ever done at Maine Audubon. People were constantly seeing if the bird had been seen and what was going on, where was it, planning their trips. We started doing lots of press. So R.I.P. Betty White there. But the bird had a huge spread in the Portland Press Herald because it was a really big story. People from all over the country and the world began to get interested. I did a live interview with a newspaper in Brazil, which was excited about this bird. I did a live morning show in Nebraska. Morning in Nebraska. This lady, what now? Tell me. Yeah, I heard about this crazy eagle. What's going on with this eagle down there? And it was huge, huge, huge news. Let me just take a moment to talk about the bird. We don't really know a ton about it. We don't know if it's a male or female. It is likely a male because males generally tend to wander a little wider than females. It's common in birding for a male to what we call prospect, which is fly to a new range to sort of check things out. This bird obviously sort of went further than any other normal Steller seagull, but we don't know if it's male or female. People. I'll talk a little bit later about its habits and things. But one good thing about Maine and sort of the Maritimes of Canada is that they're at a similar latitude to its home range of Russia and northern Japan. And so this bird is sort of right at home here. There's plenty of fish and things for it to eat. There are the temperatures are about right for it. It can survive in very cold winters. And so this bird, was not really at any threat of, perishing so long as it could continue to find food for itself and stay out of harm's way. And so, people were not concerned about the bird. It did not show any signs of distress or malnourishment. There were concerns that it may pick up, avian flu at some point because one of the it does eat geese. It would often seen eating Canada geese, and those can sometimes carry avian flu, but it never showed any signs of that. So this bird was healthy and happy in its new range. Let's talk a little bit about how that went. So these are the sightings in 2022, early 2022. So the very last days of 2021 and then early 2022. So this bird stayed in Maine and eventually moved over to the sort of Booth Bay Harbor region in February and stayed there into March. And you can see hundreds of points. Each one of these points has a lot of different sightings in it, but it was seen all over the place over here. It was also even seen one time on the edge of Casco Bay here. There's a photo associated with this record here. So it was ranging widely all up and down sort of the northern end of Casco Bay, but mostly stayed in this area. And then what happens in the spring, right? As this species does every spring, they began to move north. And so what happened to my cursor? There we go. So starting in March and April, the bird started moving north again, right? So it left Maine. It was spotted a couple times in Nova Scotia and then a couple times in Newfoundland, right? So in the summer of 2022, the bird was hanging out in various parts of the island of Newfoundland up there. And so just to reiterate, here's what we think. And there is a split about whether people think the Texas bird is the same bird. I think it is. Most people think it is, but it's difficult. We may never be able to prove it definitively. But let's just to recap here. August 2020, Alaska. This is one individual bird. March 2021, Texas. June 2020, Quebec and Newfoundland. Nova Scotia, Massachusetts, Maine. April 2022, back in Nova Scotia, and then up to Newfoundland. Okay, what a saga, this bird. Here it was. August of 2021, this bird was hanging out in Newfoundland, just living its best life, doing fine. There is a group called the Steller Sea Eagle in Canada group that continues to monitor this bird. Here we go. Another flight shot here. So that was 2021, and then we at Maine Audubon said we don't know what's going to happen now, or that was 2022. We don't know what's going to happen now, but guess what happened? In 2023, the bird was seen south again. We don't really know what happened to it in the dead of winter of 2023, but in February it was seen back in Maine, and there was much excitement. This was seen near Arosic, that bridge I showed earlier. It was seen up along that Black River, wintering with some other bald eagles. It stayed there for about a month. This is a picture that I took when I drove up as fast as I could to see the bird again, returned. You can see it was a very warm day that day in February. Lots of people hung out on the bridge hoping for a sighting of it. This is a pretty dangerous photo to get, but there were tons of people here on that bridge. Here we go. This is a video crossing the bridge in Arosic. Looking out for it. That's my crummy picture. It was not nearly as close. You can see it sort of in the middle, not nearly as close during that winter of 2023 as it was before, but it was still there. This is where it was mostly seen. So a lot, that's the bridge we just drove over, and a lot of sightings were here. There's a couple other sort of spots. Again, Maine Audubon was on top of it. We were updating our blog every single day with information about the sea eagle. We wanted to make sure that people were aware. After February 15th, 2023, there were no more sightings in Maine. Okay. But it wasn't done yet. And I want to say, before I get to the sort of what happened next, there were studies done about the importance of this bird. What happened in 2021 when there were so many people came up to Maine to look for this bird. There was a study done between at least 2,500 people drove out from outside of Maine into Maine to try to find this bird. They spent money at lodging and food, and at least $500,000 were spent in pursuit of this bird, just trying to find it. You know, birding overall is a pretty inexpensive hobby. You just got to drive and then look. You know, you're not paying for anything. But these people bought food. They stayed in hotels. They did all kinds of things, and so it was a little bit of a boom, especially for the Boothbay Harbor area in the winter when there's not a lot of other people up there. I want to talk really quickly about another bird because Maine has a little history of celebrating rare birds. This is a different bird called the great black hawk. Great black hawk is another bird that does not live in Maine. It lives in the tropics, so Mexico down through Central America and into South America. And it is not built for the cold. One of the reasons you can tell that is look at this bird's exposed leg right there. A bird that lives in the cold would never have evolved a bare leg like this because they need to keep them covered in feathers. You know, if you think about a snowy owl, they have feathers all over their legs, all over every bare part because they keep them warm. This tropical bird does not. But it showed up in Maine in the winter of 2018 into 2019. The first ever great black hawk ever seen in the United States was first seen in Texas, and then it flew and showed up, of all places, in Deering Oaks Park in Maine, where it stayed for the winter. The bird did not survive the winter in Maine. It is not built for these conditions. But it was beloved. And again, Maine Audubon was celebrating this bird. We showed tons and tons of people in Deering Oaks, including school kids, just walking around this cool bird. And it was so beloved that we actually built a statue in commemoration of this bird. So if you're ever in Deering Oaks Park in Portland, you can walk over and see a bronze statue dedicated to this vagrant bird. As far as I know, it is the first ever statue dedicated to a vagrant bird in the entire world. I'm proud that we have that distinction. Pretty cool. So the question has come up, if this Steller sea eagle doesn't survive, is there going to be some sort of memorial, some sort of remembrance of it? Well, we don't know, because this baby is still alive. This baby is still alive. Steller sea eagle is alive and well. It is still in Newfoundland. It no longer leaves Newfoundland in the winter. It just hangs out, and so it is there. You can join this Steller sea eagle in Canada Facebook group to get updates about where the bird is. Here's the latest update. This was 5 days ago, I think. This is a crappy picture. But you can see clearly that this shape right here, which has that distinctive white stripe on the bird, hanging out with a bald eagle right here, is the Steller sea eagle. There's many other better pictures from recent times too, but this is the most recent one till today. And it's still there. You can actually go up this summer if you want to Newfoundland and get on a tour and try to find this individual bird. It stays generally in this general area. This is called Trinity Bay. This is the bay that connects the Avalon Peninsula to the main part of the Newfoundland Island. And if you want, you can go still see this bird, which is the most exciting birding story that has ever happened in the state of Maine. I'm proud to be a part of it. And that is all the slides I have about this story. Oops, I'll stop sharing to talk about it. So I wanted to see if anybody, I wanted to leave 15 minutes for questions if people had any. I guess I have a little more than that. But do folks have any questions, or did anybody else see this bird in their own travels?
And anybody remotely, please put any questions in the chat window.
Oh,
did you get that, Nick?
No, I didn't.
What kind of fish would they be eating?
Anything they can get. Fish, bald eagles are and these eat the same basically things as bald eagles. They are not picky when it comes to fish. They will eat whatever they can get a hold of, or whatever they see swimming at the surface. That could be mackerel or a striped bass, or you name it, a flounder if they can see one. Eagles are more scavengery than people give them credit for, or is widely known. Bald eagles especially will eat dead animals or roadkill. They will steal from other animals. And so this eagle does the same thing. It will steal fish from an osprey, or it'll catch fish on its own if it can. It also has been known to eat ducks and geese. And so in some of the wintering areas where it was staying, there were large wintering populations of geese and ducks, and it would swoop down on them. So it eats a wide variety of things. I don't know if there's been a study or people are aware of the particular prey items that this individual is surviving on, but that would be really interesting.
I've got a couple quick questions.
Sure.
One is, in the video when you were down at the lobster pound, I think it was, and the eagle is flying. How fast do you think? Well, it was kind of leisurely, but how fast do you think they're going?
So speed is not a priority for them generally. They do not move particularly fast. So if I were to give it a miles an hour, I would say 20 miles an hour, about an average flight. Unlike and sorry, it was just a blank screen. Unlike the a bird like a peregrine falcon, which its whole deal is to fly super fast and try to ambush predators. or a different type of hawk, which is trying to move really fast. Eagles in general aren't trying to catch up to many things. And so, if it's a fish, they'll swoop down above. And so speed is not really a priority. And when they fly, it's more of a sort of leisurely pace with a lot of, flapping and gliding, like a bald eagle would. They can soar like bald eagles do with their wings straight, and they'll ride on thermals and can fly high up in the air. I don't know if I've seen, nobody has really caught any images of this particular bird migrating. We know that it travels or has the ability to travel very long distances, but no one has ever sort of seen it doing that. And so we don't know whether it flies low and along the coast or goes super high and cruises. We just don't know. So it's not a super fast flyer, but obviously a very effective flyer. It's flown around the world. I see a question from Amy down here. Did anyone ever see the bird feeding or catching prey? Yeah, we've seen it feeding a lot. The couple I recall, I remember seeing it feeding on geese, Canada geese. One was in Newfoundland and one was in Aroostook, Maine. I don't know if anyone has seen it catching prey otherwise. But it has been, it's been living for years now. And so it eats regularly and has been doing a good job of that.
How long did they live?
How long do they live?
Yeah, they can live up to 20 years. And so this bird is likely a young bird. We guess that. I mean, we know it's not an immature bird. So like all eagles, it takes a few years to reach adult plumage, and this bird has adult plumage. But usually it's younger birds just sitting out on their own, trying to establish their own territory, that are found wandering, away from a normal area or pushing the edges of their area. So this is likely a young bird, but we don't know how old it is. But it's been alive for 6 years so far, at least, and that's since it became an adult. So it's getting up there. I see Laura's question. What about breeding? So, great question. These eagles are closely related to bald eagles. And there is the question out there, could they mate with a bald eagle, and would that work? The answer is we think so, but we don't know. There are images out there that purport to be of a hybrid Steller sea eagle and bald eagle from Alaska, but they have never been sort of proven. There's been no sort of ability to actually analyze feathers or look at DNA, and so it's sort of an unknown about whether these two species can hybridize. This eagle, the Steller sea eagle, is alone, and we know that it is taking an interest in breeding. This summer there was some video of the bird in Canada sort of harassing a bald eagle nest, and we don't know if it was trying to breed with other bald eagles, or it was maybe just acting territorially around a nest. But it has shown sort of interest in maybe mating with a bald eagle, but people have not seen it sort of attempt to mate or show obvious signs of a sort of a breeding display or take other actions that would lead to believe that it was trying to breed. So we just don't know. The desire to breed is natural in birds and in Steller sea eagles, but we haven't been able to sort of talk to it and ask what it's interested in, and haven't seen firm evidence that it's trying to do that. So we don't know, but it would be fascinating if it did happen.
What are your theories as to why this bird went from Alaska to Texas? That seems very unusual for
Yeah, the reason is I think it just there's a couple theories. I think it may have been trying to find the ocean. This is an ocean bird. It found itself inland in Alaska, which is very far away from where it has ever been and where it should be. It knows instinctively that it has to fly south. That's sort of its deal. And so I think it just flew south and kept going. It may have stopped at reservoirs or things along the way, lakes or things, and fed. Nobody knows how it went between Alaska and Texas, and so nobody knows exactly what it did or how it fed or where it went or what. So that's my guess, is that it just kept going south until it said, this doesn't feel right. What are these pointy green things that I'm seeing? And then turned around. And so, I would love to know. I would love to go back in time and try to figure out the path this bird took, or what it was doing that whole time. Was it in Texas for a long time? Was it somewhere else for a long time? I just don't know. But all I can think of was that it was lost and doing things that happen when it's lost.
And
So I see.
You may have answered this earlier, I guess, at the beginning of your remarks, but are there any estimates as to how many Steller sea eagles there are in the world?
Yeah, there's about 4,000 left. It's the rarest eagle in the world. Its main threats in its home range are sort of habitat destruction. Lead poisoning is a big one. So they are scavengers, as I said. And when people shoot animals and the lead bullet fragments break up into the bodies, and then the bird comes along later and eats the remnants of the animal, it ingests lead. Lead poisoning is a common ailment for bald eagles and Steller sea eagles. And so those are sort of its major threats. It also just has sort of always had a small range. And so it was never a very numerous bird to begin with, but about 4,000 are estimated about right now.
And in case you didn't see it, Laura said, wow, what a story. And you were a masterful storyteller, Nick. Thanks. The closest I will probably get to this phenomenal bird. Thanks again. And then Jean says, in the days just before word about the Steller sea eagle became talked about in Maine, my daughter Jane Tuttle, driving down Route 1 towards Bath, was stunned by a huge bird flying out of the roadside. It flew opposite direction from her, so no more sighting. She can't confirm it was a Steller sea eagle, but when news came out about it, she wonders. Yes, she and I were at the Lobster Shack New Year's when you were there.
Cool.
Took the photo.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, it's hard to know what Jane saw. We will never know. We do get sightings quite often of people who believe they have seen the Steller sea eagle, and without proof, it's very difficult to say. But this bird has been consistently seen in Newfoundland for years now, and almost daily. And so if someone sees it or thinks they see it in Maine now, and it's unlikely to be the bird, it is not the bird. But that doesn't stop people from seeing it. The difficulties are the size and the plumage. So the size, people say, I saw the biggest bird I've ever seen. That could be, I'm sure that was it. Bald eagles are also gigantic. They are gigantic. And if you see a young bald eagle, so remember, young bald eagles take about 4 years to get the white tail and head. And when they're juveniles, they look different. They have white in weird places, and they're sort of splotchy in places. They can look very much not like a bald eagle, and potentially like a Steller sea eagle. And they're also very big. And so the vast majority of people who call us saying they've seen a Steller sea eagle are actually seeing a juvenile bald eagle. But that's still cool in and of itself. But in the timeline lines up for you and Jane, who knows? Who knows? We don't know where it was in that time.
Well, that was an excellent presentation, Nick. Excellent. And
cool. Sorry I ended a little early there, but.
No, that's okay. And Laura said road trip to Newfoundland this summer.
Let's go. Let's go. Let me just say, I've birded in Newfoundland. It's awesome. I highly encourage everyone to get out to Newfoundland. Even if you don't see this eagle, you'll see tons of other good birds, like giant gannet colonies and all kinds of boreal birds. And so it's worth a trip. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Nick. We really appreciate it. And if you learn of anything new, please keep us posted. And we will be in touch with you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me, everybody. Take care.
Sure. Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining this Tuesday talk. For more information, please visit Merryspring at www.merryspring.org and also on our